Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's jump right in. If you're a professional trying to navigate the massive artificial intelligence upgrades we've seen throughout the spring of 2026, you're probably feeling a bit of whiplash. I mean, we've had these massive, almost simultaneous releases from Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google. But today, we're doing something different. We are shifting our entire perspective. We're moving away from that exhausting hunt to find the single best AI. Instead, we're going to focus on a matchmaking framework. We want to understand exactly how to match the right 2026 frontier model to your specific task.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the best AI myth. Then we'll break down our big three: Claude the precision coder, Gemini the multimodal researcher, and GPT the versatile agent. Finally, we'll look at a real-world medical reasoning test and reveal the ultimate multimodal routing strategy.
All right, Section 1, the best AI myth.
So this addresses the most common, yet fundamentally flawed way that people approach AI today. It's a question I hear literally all the time. Which AI is actually best in 2026? And hey, it's completely understandable why it asked this. The rapid-fire releases of Q1 2026, Claude Opus 4.7, GPT 5.5, Gemini 3.1 Pro, have left so many of us completely overwhelmed. We're all just looking for one simple subscription to rule them all, right? But here is the honest, undeniable meta answer. It entirely depends on the task. The whole idea of a single universal champion, it's dead. The leaderboard hasn't just shuffled around, it has completely fractured by use case. Just look at these hard numbers from the May 2026 benchmarks. This brilliantly illustrates exactly what I mean. Claude Opus 4.7 is the undisputed king of autonomous software engineering, scoring an incredible 64.3% on SWE Bench Pro. Meanwhile, Gemini 3.1 Pro absolutely dominates in complex scientific reasoning, with a 94.3% on the grueling GPQA Diamond test, all while offering unmatched API pricing. And then you have GPT 5.5, taking the crown for agentic autonomous terminal workflows at 82.7%. See? There is no all-arounder champion here anymore. We only have specialized elite athletes.
Let's move to Section 2, Claude, the precision coder.
Get a load of this staggering stat from independent testing of Anthropic's flagship Opus 4.7 and their incredibly efficient mid-tier model, Sonnet 4.6. An 88% first-pass correctness rate. Developers are absolutely loving Claude right now, and for good reason. It doesn't just blindly write code. It actually thinks through edge cases before writing, it produces cleaner variable naming, and it explains exactly how to fix bugs systematically. It's incredibly precise and honors complex, multi-layered instructions better than anything else out there.
So, the crucial takeaway is knowing exactly when to deploy it. If you need complex, multi-file coding or you're doing heavy refactoring, Claude is your guy. Its massive 1 million token context window means you can reliably feed it an entire codebase and it won't lose the plot halfway through. Honestly, this is exactly why it's become the default engine behind elite developer tools like Cursor and Claude Code. Plus, if you're doing long-form writing where the exact tone and formatting matter immensely, Claude simply follows instructions better. Moving right along to Section 3, Gemini, the multimodal researcher.
Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro has quietly become the most consistent overperformer at its price point in the entire industry. And here's why. Unlike models that had vision capabilities bolted on as an afterthought, Gemini was built from the ground up with a native multimodal architecture. That means it can literally watch a video, listen to an audio file, and read a textbook simultaneously, and synthesize all of that information effortlessly.
So, when should you call on Gemini? Well, if your daily workflow lives inside Google Docs, Sheets, or Gmail, Gemini is natively woven right into those interfaces. No copying and pasting required, which is a huge time saver. Beyond that, because it's built on Google's search infrastructure, it's virtually unmatched for real-time web research. And as we just saw with those benchmarks, if you need cutting-edge scientific knowledge retrieval, or you need to process massive amounts of data at a crazy low cost, Gemini is absolutely your researcher.
Now for Section 4, GPT, the versatile agent. Let's talk about OpenAI's GPT 5.5. They recently rebuilt this entirely from scratch to create the strongest agentic model available. Now, I know we just established that the concept of an overall best is a myth, but ChatGPT really does remain the ultimate Swiss Army knife. It might not beat Claude at pure coding or Gemini at massive document parsing, but it brings an incredibly broad and mature set of tools into one single, easy-to-use interface.
So what is GPT 5.5 actually best at? First off, autonomous terminal execution. If you need an AI to basically operate your computer's command line, GPT 5.5 is miles ahead of the pack. Second is efficiency. This new architecture actually burns 35% less token quota for equivalent output compared to the older GPT 5.4. And finally, its natural voice mode is staggeringly good. It handles interruptions and conversational flow so flawlessly that if you want to brainstorm out loud while driving or walking the dog, it's really the only real choice.
All right, Section 5, Real-World Medical Reasoning. We've talked a lot about benchmarks and features, but let's make this totally concrete. We're going to look at a real-world clinical test to prove just how astonishingly capable these specialized systems have become. Consider a complex case from the Meds Expert QA multimodal benchmark. Researchers had a real CT scan accompanied by complex patient history text, a man with a history of vomiting and severe vital sign fluctuations. They fed this exact image and text into GPT-5. Now, the model didn't just read the text. It natively synthesized the visual evidence of a ruptured esophagus with the clinical notes to accurately diagnose Boerhaave syndrome. It then successfully recommended the exact right, high-stakes next step, a gastrograph and swallow study, explicitly ruling out incorrect options.
The results of this study are frankly jaw-dropping. When evaluating these complex multimodal medical cases, GPT-5 didn't just match humans. It actually surpassed pre-licensed medical experts by a massive 24% in reasoning capability. This brilliantly illustrates what happens when an AI can flawlessly integrate textual narratives with visual spatial reasoning. Guys, it's a true paradigm shift for clinical decision support.
Let's wrap it all up with Section 6, the multimodal routing strategy. Now that we know what each model is actually good at, how are the top engineers and power users applying this in 2026? They're using the multimodal routing strategy, and I want you to let this number sink in for a second. 107x. That is the cost difference between generating an output token using a closed frontier model like GPT 5.5, which costs around $30 per million tokens, versus an incredibly capable open-weight model like DeepSeek V4 Flash, which costs just 28 cents. Literally 107 times cheaper. If you are running high volumes of data, having brand loyalty to a single lab will literally bankrupt your project.
So here's the playbook that the pros are using. You set up an architecture that routes tasks dynamically. You send 70% of your basic, high-volume tasks, things like data classification or baseline routing, to incredibly cheap models like DeepSeek or Gemini. Then, you use Claude Sonnet 4.6 for your everyday coding and document writing. And you only call in the heavy, expensive hitters like Claude Opus 4.7 or GPT 5.5 for that remaining 5% of tasks that genuinely require deep, multi-step reasoning. Teams doing this are achieving all frontier performance at roughly 15% of the cost.
So I want to leave you with a question, a little audit of your own workflow today. What tasks are you still forcing the wrong model to do? We have to stop using a Swiss Army knife when we actually need a scalpel. Match the model to the task today, because trust me, by tomorrow, the models and the tasks they can accomplish will have evolved all over again. The real question is, are you ready to build a routing system that can keep up? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.